The morning sunlight streamed softly through the thin curtains, falling on the wooden floor of the living room. The grandfather sat in his usual chair, staring blankly at the photographs on the wall. Each frame held a memory, a piece of a life that now felt incomplete. His daughter had been gone for several weeks, yet the emptiness in the house made every moment feel like the day he had received the call. He could still hear the voice on the other end of the phone, gentle but heavy with sorrow, confirming the unthinkable. The world had shifted in an instant, and nothing felt the same. He reached for his cup of tea, though the warmth did little to comfort him. The steam rose and disappeared into the air, much like the presence of his daughter had vanished from their home. Every object in the room seemed to whisper reminders of her. Her favorite chair in the corner, the blanket she loved draped over it, the small vase she always filled with fresh flowers. Now the flowers remained empty, and the house seemed to echo with silence. He had spent countless hours wandering from room to room, touching items she had used, hoping to feel a fragment of her presence. The grandchildren had been visiting less frequently. They tried to be cheerful, but their innocence and curiosity often clashed with the heavy atmosphere of grief that had settled over the house. The grandfather appreciated their efforts, yet he could not summon the energy to match their liveliness. He knew they missed her too, but he feared that his own sadness might overwhelm them. He wanted to be strong, to carry the weight of sorrow silently so they would not feel the burden, yet every day it grew heavier. He remembered the last time he had seen her. She had been laughing about something trivial, her eyes bright with life, completely unaware of the fragility of the future. That memory haunted him. He replayed it endlessly, wishing he could go back, wishing he could change the course of events. He had asked himself countless times if there was something he could have done differently, some warning he missed, some small act of care that might have altered fate. But deep down, he knew that life did not always give second chances, and guilt became another silent companion in his solitude. Days passed in a blur. He would wake up, eat mechanically, and sit in his chair, staring at the photographs or gazing out of the window at the garden they had once tended together. The garden, too, had grown wild, unchecked since she was gone. He noticed weeds sprouting where flowers once bloomed. The small pond he had helped her maintain becoming murky. Even nature seemed to mourn, reflecting the disorder of his life and heart. Visitors came occasionally, offering condolences and attempting to fill the silence with words of comfort. Friends, neighbors, and distant relatives would speak softly, their voices polite yet filled with sympathy. The grandfather nodded and smiled weakly, grateful for their presence but unable to engage fully. Conversations seemed hollow, their words brushing against the surface without reaching the depth of his grief. In the evenings, when everyone had gone, the house felt emptier, the shadows longer and the memories sharper. He found himself wandering into her old study one afternoon. The door creaked as he opened it, and a wave of familiarity washed over him. The room had always been her sanctuary, filled with books, photographs, and personal notes. He ran his fingers over the desk, the smooth surface now covered with dust. He remembered her sitting there, writing letters, jotting down thoughts, or simply reflecting quietly. The absence of her presence was almost tangible, a weight pressing against the chest. The grandfather sat down at the desk, feeling a strange mix of sorrow and longing. He picked up a pen, half expecting it to carry a message from her, a secret note left just for him. Instead, it was empty, just as the pages of his heart felt. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he allowed himself a moment of release. He did not often cry. His strength had always been in holding things together, in being the pillar for his family. But grief was patient, persistent, and it demanded acknowledgement. As he sat there, he thought about the children, wondering how they were coping. Their laughter had faded, replaced with quiet murmurs and questions they did not voice. He wished he could shield them from the pain, yet he knew they needed to understand life's harsh truths. He wanted to tell them stories about their mother, to paint vivid pictures of her spirit and kindness. But words felt inadequate. The emotions were too raw, too vast, and he feared that trying to capture her essence would fall short. He decided to take a walk in the garden, seeking solace in movement and the familiar scent of earth and flowers. The breeze was gentle, carrying the faint fragrance of blooming roses she had planted herself. He touched the petals lightly, remembering her hands tending them with care, her laughter mingling with the bird song. Memories flooded him, some sweet, some bitter. He realized that grief was not just sadness. It was the accumulation of every moment shared, every word spoken, every gesture of love now absent. On the bench by the pond, he sat down, gazing at the rippling water. The reflection of the sky seemed distorted, much like his thoughts. He thought about the life he had shared with his daughter, the dreams she had, the moments of joy, and even the small disagreements that now seemed trivial. Every memory was precious and painful at the same time. He whispered her name softly, hoping the wind would carry it, hoping it might reach her wherever she was. Evenings were the hardest. The quiet of the house amplified his thoughts, and the shadows lengthened like stretching fingers of sorrow. He would light a small lamp, sit by the window, and watch the world outside continue despite his personal loss. Neighbors laughed, children played, and life moved on. He envied their normalcy, yet understood it was not a curse. He had to find a way to exist amidst the grief, to breathe and function while carrying the weight of absence. Sometimes he talked to her as if she were there, recounting events of the day, small victories or simple observations. It was a ritual that brought him a strange comfort, a way to maintain connection even when reality refused to offer it. He laughed softly at his own foolishness, but deep down he cherished the moments, no matter how one-sided they were. Talking aloud gave voice to feelings that were otherwise trapped, and in those moments he felt a whisper of closeness. As days turned into weeks, he began to notice subtle changes in himself. The sharp edge of sorrow dulled slightly, replaced by a quiet longing that could be endured. He started to organize small parts of the house, tidying spaces she had loved. It was a slow, careful process, almost ceremonial. Every object handled, every photograph straightened felt like a tribute. It reminded him that though she was gone, fragments of her remained, woven into the fabric of their home. One afternoon, while clearing a shelf of old books, he stumbled upon a small, tucked-away box he had never noticed before. It was ordinary in appearance, dusty and slightly worn at the corners. A small key hung from a ribbon around it, and the grandfather felt a curious pull, a mixture of apprehension and hope. He wondered what could be inside, what secrets or memories might lie hidden. A part of him feared disappointment, fearing the box would be empty, meaningless, a cruel tease from fate. Yet another part of him trembled with anticipation, sensing that it might hold something that could bridge the gap between his grief and understanding. For now, though, he set it aside. The day was ending, and the house grew dim, the lamp casting a soft glow across the familiar room. He sat in his chair once more, reflecting on the emptiness, on the memories, and on the small, mysterious box waiting quietly in the corner. He realized that grief was not just an emotion, but a journey, a path he would walk step by step, moment by moment. The future felt uncertain, but for the first time since the loss, a faint glimmer of curiosity flickered within him, a tiny spark that whispered of discovery, connection, and perhaps healing. Days passed slowly, each one blending into the next, with the grandfather moving through his home almost like a shadow. He found himself returning to the small box he had discovered tucked away on the shelf. The curiosity that had sparked faintly in the previous days now grew stronger, urging him to confront the unknown it held. He carried it to the study, a room filled with memories and the lingering presence of his daughter. He ran his fingers over the worn edges, feeling the smoothness of the key hanging on its ribbon, and wondered what secrets were hidden inside. There was hesitation in his movements, a fear of disappointment, but also a deep, quiet hope that this box might offer a connection he had been longing for. He sat down at the desk and placed the box carefully in front of him. The room was quiet, the soft light from the window illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. He took a deep breath, gripping the small key, and inserted it into the lock. It clicked open smoothly, almost as if it had been waiting for this moment. He lifted the lid slowly, careful not to disturb whatever treasures were inside, and peered into the box. Inside were letters tied with thin ribbons, a small notebook, a few photographs, and several tiny trinkets that seemed to have personal meaning. He reached for the first letter, noting the neat handwriting he remembered so well. It was addressed to him, and the words immediately drew him in. His hands trembled slightly as he read, realizing that these were messages, reflections, and thoughts his daughter had carefully preserved. Some were written during happy times, others during moments of doubt or struggle, and each one carried the raw honesty of her heart. The photographs captured moments he had never seen. One showed her at a small charity event, smiling at a group of children she had helped. Another depicted her at a quiet cafe, lost in thought with a notebook open in front of her. These were glimpses into parts of her life he had never fully known. It struck him how little one could ever truly know another person, even someone so close. Yet, instead of sadness, there was a sense of pride growing within him. She had lived with depth and kindness, quietly touching lives in ways he had not imagined. He picked up the small notebook, its cover soft and worn from handling. Flipping through the pages, he found detailed thoughts, reflections, and little sketches. Some were simple reminders or plans for the day, while others were philosophical musings and ideas about life, family, and love. He felt a wave of connection wash over him, as if these notes were a bridge reaching across time and loss. For the first time in weeks, a genuine smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Among the items were trinkets, small tokens of meaning. A pressed flower, a keychain from a memorable trip, a tiny figurine she had kept on her desk. Each item told a story, and as he held them, the grandfather remembered conversations and moments he had overlooked. A quiet laughter echoed in his mind, and tears began to form again, this time mixed with warmth and recognition. It was not just sorrow he felt, but the richness of her life, the depth of her heart, and the love she had poured quietly into the world. Hours passed without his noticing. He read letters, studied photographs, and touched each object with reverence. The sunlight shifted through the window, and the room seemed to hold him gently in its calm. For a moment, grief and discovery intertwined, creating a strange, almost comforting presence. He realized that this box, hidden for so long, was more than a collection of items. It was a testament, a story preserved carefully, waiting for him to see it. Later, he sat back in his chair, the box now open before him, and let himself reflect. He thought about the ways his daughter had influenced the family, the lessons she had imparted without words, and the love she had quietly expressed. He realized that though she was gone, her presence was still alive in countless ways. The box had become a vessel not just of memories but of understanding, showing him a deeper layer of her life and spirit. The next day, he began to share the discovery with the family. Gathering his grandchildren and a few relatives, he led them to the study and carefully presented the box. Their eyes widened with curiosity and anticipation as they peered inside. The grandchildren gasped softly at the photographs, recognizing their parent in ways they had never seen. The letters were read aloud slowly, each word carrying emotion and a sense of closeness that had been missing. The family was drawn together by the shared experience, leaning in, touching the photographs and laughing softly at memories described in the letters. The adults, too, were moved. Some wiped away tears, others simply nodded, taking in the depth of their child's heart and mind. The grandfather watched quietly, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He had been so consumed by grief that he had not realized the ways her life had been quietly rich and meaningful. Now through these hidden items he saw the person he had loved even more clearly than before. The room seemed lighter, filled with emotion, yet tempered by a growing sense of connection and warmth. The children asked questions, pointing to photographs, and trinkets eager to know more about their parent. The grandfather answered as best he could, sharing memories he had kept tucked away. He noticed that the house no longer felt as empty as it had. The items in the box brought life back into the rooms, creating conversations and laughter that had been absent. Each story told became a thread weaving them closer together, healing some of the gaps left by grief. Throughout the week, the grandfather revisited the box, spending time with each item, reflecting on the letters and photographs. He discovered more about his daughter's kindness, her quiet courage, and the ways she had touched the lives of others. Some letters revealed challenges he had never known she faced, written with honesty and courage. Others spoke of dreams and hopes, painting a picture of a person who had lived fully, even in the face of uncertainty. Each piece of writing, each photograph, each trinket added depth to his understanding, bridging the gap between memory and reality. The discovery also inspired conversations with the grandchildren. They began sharing stories of their own, connecting the memories in the box to their experiences and understanding. They laughed, cried, and questioned, creating a dialogue that had been missing since the loss. The grandfather realized that grief, though still present, was being softened by shared stories and rediscovered connections. The box had become a catalyst, opening doors to conversations that were healing and meaningful. He also began noticing small acts in the community that reflected his daughter's influence. Neighbors mentioned ways she had quietly helped them, and friends recounted moments of kindness they had received. Each story added to the mosaic of her life, showing the depth of her character. The grandfather felt a mixture of surprise and pride, recognizing that even though she was gone, her impact remained. It became a source of comfort, a reminder that life, even when fleeting, could leave lasting impressions. One evening, as he sat in the study, the box opened before him once more. He realized that this discovery had shifted something within him. The pain of loss was still there, sharp and present, but it was now accompanied by understanding and connection. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a desire to honor his daughter's life and legacy. The objects in the box were more than memories. They were guidance, showing him how to carry forward the values and love she had embodied. He decided to document some of the discoveries, writing notes and reflections of his own. This process became a new ritual, connecting him to her and creating a record for future generations. The family continued to gather around the box, each visit bringing laughter, stories, and a shared sense of closeness. The grandfather found that grief could coexist with joy, and memory could coexist with discovery. Each day he felt a little more able to face the emptiness, armed with the treasures of understanding and the quiet reassurance that the love they shared was enduring. By the end of part 2, the grandfather's world had subtly shifted. The house was still filled with echoes of loss, yet it now carried the warmth of connection and remembrance. The discovery in the box had opened doors to stories untold, lessons unseen, and a deeper bond between him and the family. It had transformed grief into something that could be acknowledged and shared, revealing that even in sorrow, there could be light, understanding, and hope. The grandfather noticed a change in the atmosphere of the house after the discovery of the box. The weight of silence had lifted slightly, replaced with quiet conversations, gentle laughter, and the soft hum of activity that had once been familiar. The grandchildren were especially drawn to the photographs and letters, lingering over details and asking questions that opened new stories. Their curiosity was contagious, and the grandfather found himself smiling more often, answering questions he had once felt too heavy to respond to. He realized that the family was beginning to reconnect, and the hidden legacy in the box was a bridge bringing them together. One morning he gathered the grandchildren and suggested they explore the contents of the box together. The children eagerly sat around the study table, their eyes wide with anticipation. He opened the box slowly, letting them see each photograph, letter, and small trinket. Each item sparked memories, curiosity, and conversation. The photographs captured moments of their parents' life they had never witnessed, quiet acts of kindness, moments of contemplation, and times of pure joy. The letters, written in neat, careful handwriting, revealed personal thoughts, hopes, and reflections that brought new depth to their understanding. As they read through the letters, the grandchildren began asking questions about the stories behind each photograph or note. The grandfather patiently answered, sharing memories he had held privately for years. He spoke of their parents' sense of humor, her compassion, and the small gestures of love that had gone unnoticed. The children listened intently, absorbing each word and connecting it with the photographs and trinkets. It was as if a missing piece of their family history was finally being revealed, and the house seemed to come alive with shared understanding. The adults in the family also became involved, drawn by the discovery and the conversations it inspired. They read letters aloud, shared recollections, and recalled moments that had seemed ordinary at the time, but now held new significance. The room was filled with emotion, laughter, tears, and gentle sighs of remembrance. The grandfather watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of pride and relief. He had been carrying the grief alone for so long, but now through this shared experience the family was healing together. One letter revealed a hidden act of generosity his daughter had performed. She had quietly supported a neighbor struggling with illness, offering assistance without seeking recognition. The family was moved, realizing the depth of her compassion and the ways she had silently influenced the lives of others. The grandchildren were inspired, asking if they could continue similar acts of kindness in her memory. The grandfather nodded, touched by their eagerness to honor her legacy, and felt a sense of hope that her values would live on through them. Another photograph showed her at a local community event, helping organize a small fundraiser. The grandfather remembered that day vaguely, but had not realized the full extent of her involvement. Seeing her commitment and dedication in the photograph reminded him of her determination and the quiet strength she had always shown. He shared stories of her dedication, emphasizing the importance of compassion, persistence, and generosity. The grandchildren listened intently, absorbing lessons they had never learned through words alone. The trinkets in the box also told stories. A small keychain from a trip reminded them of family vacations filled with laughter and adventure. A pressed flower evoked memories of walks in the garden and afternoons spent exploring nature. Each item became a story starter, prompting recollections and questions that deepened their understanding of their parent. The grandfather found joy in these moments, realizing that the box was not just a collection of items but a living memory, connecting generations and fostering shared experiences. Even the letters that revealed challenges and struggles brought valuable lessons. One letter detailed a difficult decision she had made, reflecting her courage and thoughtful approach to life. The family discussed the challenges openly, acknowledging that life was not always easy, but that resilience and integrity could guide them through hardships. The grandfather felt a quiet pride in her wisdom and admired her ability to face challenges with grace. Sharing these stories with the family helped them understand her fully and appreciate the depth of her character. The discovery also sparked new family traditions. The grandfather suggested they dedicate one evening each week to exploring the contents of the box, reading letters, looking at photographs, and sharing stories. These evenings became cherished rituals, filled with laughter, tears, and meaningful conversations. The children eagerly anticipated them, and the adults found comfort in remembering their loved one together. The house that had felt empty and quiet for so long now resonated with the warmth of connection and shared memory. As they spent more time with the box, the family began to notice the small ways their parent had influenced them. Values of kindness, patience, and thoughtfulness were reflected in their own actions, and they discussed how they could honor her legacy through their behavior. The grandfather encouraged these reflections, guiding the conversations and emphasizing the importance of carrying forward the lessons and values she had left behind. It was a process of healing, learning, and growth that enriched every member of the family. One day, the grandfather found a letter addressed to him, written in his daughter's familiar handwriting. The letter spoke of love, gratitude, and the importance of family bonds. It expressed her hopes for their continued closeness and understanding, even in her absence. Reading it, the grandfather felt a profound sense of connection, as if she were speaking to him directly from beyond. He held the letter close, tears streaming down his face, and realized that though she was gone, her presence remained through the words, memories, and love she had left behind. The grandchildren, inspired by the discovery, began sharing their own thoughts and stories about their parent. They talked about small moments of joy, lessons learned, and the ways they felt connected to her. The grandfather listened, encouraged, and participated, feeling the warmth of shared memory. These conversations strengthened the bonds within the family, creating a sense of unity and purpose that had been missing since the loss. The box had become a focal point, guiding them through grief and towards understanding. The adults also found healing in the shared exploration. They discovered sides of their loved one they had never fully appreciated, gaining insight into her values, priorities, and the quiet ways she had enriched their lives. Discussions about her kindness, resilience, and thoughtfulness brought both tears and smiles, deepening their appreciation and connection. The grandfather watched, feeling gratitude for the box and the opportunity it had created for family healing. In time, the family began to plan ways to honor her memory beyond the house. Inspired by the letters and photographs, they discussed charitable acts, community involvement, and ways to support each other more intentionally. The grandfather encouraged these plans, seeing them as a continuation of her legacy. The box had sparked a chain of reflection, discussion, and action that extended beyond grief. transforming their sorrow into meaningful remembrance and purpose. The grandfather noticed changes within himself as well. The intense grief that had consumed him began to soften, replaced by a sense of understanding, connection, and hope. He felt more engaged with the family, more willing to participate in conversations and activities, and more open to expressing emotions. The box had not removed the pain, but it had offered a path through it, providing context, memories, and insight that helped him navigate his loss. Evenings in the house were no longer silent. The study became a space of storytelling, laughter, and shared emotion. The grandchildren often lingered there, asking questions, sharing experiences, and connecting with the memories preserved in the box. The adults participated as well, recounting personal recollections, offering reflections, and finding comfort in the shared exploration. The grandfather, once isolated in his grief, now felt a renewed sense of purpose and belonging. Through these experiences, the family learned that grief could coexist with joy, sorrow could coexist with love, and loss could coexist with meaningful connection. The box had revealed hidden aspects of their loved one's life, provided insight into her character, and offered opportunities for healing and growth. The grandfather realized that while the pain of loss would always be a part of their lives, the shared memories, stories, and love would remain, guiding them forward and strengthening their bonds. By the end of Part 3, the family had undergone a subtle transformation. The grandfather, once isolated in grief, had become a central figure in guiding conversations and sharing memories. The grandchildren were inspired and engaged, eager to learn more about their parent and honor her legacy. The adults found solace in understanding, deepening their appreciation for the life that had been lived. The box, once a simple collection of items, had become a powerful catalyst for connection, remembrance, and healing, setting the stage for the family to continue exploring and preserving the hidden legacy that had been so carefully preserved. The days that followed brought a new rhythm to the house. The grandfather found himself spending more time with the box, revisiting letters and photographs, reliving memories, and discovering new details he had not noticed before. Each visit was an emotional journey, sometimes bringing laughter, sometimes tears, but always leaving a sense of connection and understanding. He noticed the subtle ways in which his grief had shifted. It was no longer only a heavy weight pressing down on him, but a quiet companion that reminded him of love, presence, and memory. One morning, he decided to take the grandchildren on a walk through the garden, showing them the flowers their parent had planted and the small areas that had been cared for meticulously. The children listened intently as he recounted stories of their parent tending the roses, laughing at small mishaps, and speaking gently to the plants. He emphasized the care, patience, and dedication that had gone into each action, teaching the grandchildren lessons about kindness and attention to detail. The children absorbed the stories, asking questions and pointing to little details they recognized, creating a dialogue that brought the past to life in the present. After the walk, they returned to the study where the grandfather suggested a quiet activity. He pulled out a small notebook and encouraged the grandchildren to write letters to their parent, expressing their thoughts, memories, and feelings. Some wrote about times they remembered. Others wrote about questions they wished they could ask. The grandfather wrote alongside them, composing his own thoughts and reflections. The act of writing became therapeutic, allowing them to articulate emotions that had been difficult. As evenings came, the family gathered more frequently in the study. The box had become a focal point, inviting storytelling, discussion, and reflection. The adults shared anecdotes that revealed new sides of their loved one. The grandchildren asked thoughtful questions, and the grandfather provided context and guidance. Together, they explored the lessons embedded in the photographs, letters, and trinkets. They laughed at humorous moments, empathized with struggles, and marveled at acts of quiet courage and kindness. The study, once a place of silence, now resonated with life and emotion. One letter described a personal challenge their parent had faced in secret. It spoke of fear, doubt, and the process of making difficult decisions with honesty and integrity. The family read it together, pausing to reflect on the courage it took to face such situations. The grandfather spoke softly about resilience, the importance of facing fears, and the value of learning from challenges. The grandchildren absorbed these lessons eagerly, asking questions about how they could apply them in their own lives. It became a teaching moment, blending memory with guidance and wisdom. The family also began discussing ways to honor the legacy revealed in the box. They brainstormed small acts of kindness, charitable gestures, and ways to carry forward the values of compassion and thoughtfulness. The grandfather encouraged them, helping the children plan simple acts like helping neighbors, sharing stories, or volunteering in small ways. Each suggestion sparked excitement and commitment, reinforcing the lessons they were learning from the discoveries in the box. The family began to see that honoring a life could be an ongoing, meaningful activity that extended beyond memories. During these weeks, the grandfather found a renewed sense of purpose. His grief, once isolating, was now intertwined with connection, memory, and reflection. He felt empowered to guide the family, share stories, and preserve the lessons embedded in the box. The act of exploring the items became a ritual of remembrance, teaching, and emotional support. He noticed a subtle shift in the grandchildren, who began to show empathy, thoughtfulness, and a deeper understanding of their parents' character. The adults, too, were finding healing in the shared exploration, reflecting on the impact of a life that had touched theirs profoundly. One afternoon, while looking through a collection of photographs, the grandfather discovered a set of images he had not seen before. They depicted quiet moments, a day spent in the park helping a friend or simply enjoying a sunset. Each photograph revealed the care, joy, and attention to life that their parent had embraced. The family discussed the images at length, reflecting on the small yet meaningful ways they could incorporate similar values into their lives. It became evident that even in absence, a person's influence could ripple through generations, shaping character and choices. Inspired by the discovery, the grandfather suggested a new family project. They would create a memory scrapbook, combining the letters, photographs, and stories from the box with their own reflections, thoughts, and letters. Each family member contributed, adding drawings, notes, and personal memories. The activity encouraged creativity, reflection, and emotional expression, while also preserving a tangible legacy for future generations. The project became a source of bonding, laughter, and heartfelt conversation, strengthening relationships and reinforcing the lessons of love, care, and compassion. The grandfather noticed that the house itself seemed to respond to the renewed energy. Rooms that had felt empty now felt warm, filled with voices, laughter, and stories. The garden bloomed under their renewed attention, as if mirroring the family's journey from grief to connection. Even the smallest details, the way sunlight fell on the photographs, the way dust was brushed away from treasured items, seemed to carry significance. The family was learning to live with memory, honoring the past while embracing the present. One evening, as the sun set and the study was bathed in warm light, the grandfather reflected on the journey so far. He realized that grief had not disappeared, but it had transformed. The pain of loss remained, but it was now accompanied by understanding, connection, and a sense of purpose. The discovery of the box had opened a path toward healing, creating opportunities for reflection, teaching, and shared experience. He felt gratitude for the items preserved, the lessons contained within them, and the renewed closeness of his family. The grandchildren continued to engage with the materials, writing letters, asking questions, and creating small projects inspired by the discoveries. They discussed the importance of kindness, courage, and thoughtfulness, considering ways to incorporate these values into their daily lives. The grandfather guided these discussions, sharing insights and encouraging reflection. The adults also participated, finding comfort in the shared exploration and in the recognition of their loved one's lasting influence. Together, the family created an environment where memory, love, and growth coexisted. As weeks turned into months, the grandfather observed the subtle but meaningful changes in the household. The children were more thoughtful and empathetic, engaging with each other and the community in ways inspired by the discoveries. The adults expressed appreciation for each other more openly, sharing stories, reflections, and laughter. The family had begun to rebuild a sense of togetherness, guided by the lessons and memories preserved in the box. The grandfather felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that their loved one's legacy was living on through actions, stories, and values. One morning, he found another letter tucked at the bottom of the box, addressed to the family collectively. It spoke of hope, connection, and the importance of supporting one another through life's challenges. The words resonated deeply, reminding them that even in absence, guidance, love, and presence could persist. The family read the letter together, absorbing its message and discussing ways to incorporate its wisdom into daily life. The grandfather felt a renewed sense of purpose, realizing that the act of discovery had not only connected them to their past, but also illuminated a path for their future. The family began planning small acts to honor the letter's message. They decided to support a local community initiative, organize a family gathering to share stories, and dedicate time each week to reflect on memories and lessons learned. These actions became a source of fulfillment, reinforcing the values of connection, empathy, and remembrance. The grandfather guided them gently, offering perspective, encouragement, and insight, while also embracing his own process of healing and reflection. In quiet moments, the grandfather revisited the box alone, reading letters, looking at photographs, and reflecting on the journey. He realized that grief had evolved into a complex blend of sorrow, love, and understanding. The memories preserved in the box, combined with the family's active engagement, had created a framework for living with loss without being consumed by it. He felt a growing sense of peace, comforted by the tangible connection to his loved one and the renewed closeness of his family. The grandchildren often accompanied him during these moments, eager to hear stories, ask questions, and share reflections. The grandfather found joy in their presence, recognizing that the process of exploration and discovery was fostering resilience, empathy, and appreciation for the richness of life. The adults participated as well, contributing insights, memories, and reflections, creating a multi-generational dialogue that strengthened bonds and reinforced shared values. By the end of Part 4, the family had embraced a new way of living with memory. The discovery in the box had not only revealed hidden aspects of their loved one's life, but had also become a catalyst for reflection, teaching, and emotional connection. The grandfather, once isolated in grief, had become a guide, storyteller, and source of wisdom. The children had learned valuable lessons about kindness, courage, and empathy. The adults had found solace and understanding in shared exploration. Together, they were creating a living legacy, honoring the past while building a foundation of love, connection, and growth for the future. The discovery of the hidden box had changed the family in ways the grandfather had not imagined. Each day now carried a new sense of purpose, a connection to the past intertwined with hope for the future. The letters, photographs, and trinkets were no longer just items. They were guides, teaching lessons, sharing stories, and reminding them of the love that had once filled the house. The grandfather watched as the grandchildren engaged with the memories, asking thoughtful questions, sharing their own reflections, and showing care for the stories they were uncovering. One morning, he suggested a new family project, to create a space in the house dedicated to memories. They chose a quiet corner of the living room, where they placed the photographs, letters, and small trinkets from the box, arranging them carefully to form a small memory corner. The children helped, placing items thoughtfully and adding notes and drawings inspired by the stories they had learned. The grandfather guided them, sharing memories aloud and encouraging them to speak about their feelings. This activity became a symbol of their connection, a tangible reminder that their loved one's presence continued through memory and shared experience.